All right, so we're gonna move on and do a little introduction to embroidery. I'll show you guys several stitches, and then also just wanted to show you guys that I have a piece of canvas here, just regular painting canvas. It's a little bit thick, but know that you can actually embroider on fabric or you can embroider on paper. Now, one thing that I mentioned before is that you guys can use collage in your final projects, in your 8-fold artist books, your accordion books. So you can actually either do embroidery directly on the paper, or you can embroider on a piece of fabric and then paste it on paper, okay? So there's 2 ways for you guys to incorporate actual texture. And the idea behind embroidery for this class is just discussing actual texture. The project that we did was actually on implied texture. Now, if you're going to be embroidering on fabric, it's a good idea to have one of these hoops, and which you can actually stretch your fabric on one side and keep it stretched for the duration of the embroidery that you're going to be working on. So I have a really big one here. I'm going to lower my camera to show you guys the process, okay? It's already been tensed in my embroidery hoop, and I'm just going to get away some of the fabric. Now, I have a pretty big embroidery needle. The reason being is that I am showing you guys, you know, for this demonstration, it's better to have a bigger needle, okay? And then this is a very thick thread. So I'm just going to do a little knot at the end, okay? And again, I'm going to use a single strand. Now, when you guys are using embroidery thread, know that you can actually, so let me just take out a piece. So this embroidery thread, anyone that you buy, you know, Joann's or Michael's, just know that they have about 6 strands. So depending on how thick or thin you want to work, you can actually separate these and then just, how do you call it? Thread a needle using either the full 6 threads or only 3. Does that make sense? Okay. So anyway, let's go back to my big thread needle here. With this contrasting red, I've made a little bit of a knot at the end. And I'm actually going to, just for the sake of it, I'm going to draw myself several lines here, kind of straight, well, as straight as they can be, lines here to show you guys different stitches. This is just for the sake of showing you guys. So I'm going to start here with the first stitch. And again, this is rather thick. We're going to do a back stitch. So again, I have my little knot in the back. You guys see that? I'm also embroidering with this single thread. You can actually embroider with double thread, which is going to make the embroidery much thicker. So the back stitch is the first thing you do, and I'm going to make it rather big for you guys to see. You're going to go in. Right. Okay. So I did my first stitch. And it's called back stitch because now I moved forward 1 space. It's up to you how big or how small you want to do it. And now I'm actually going to go back to the end of the first stitch. Okay. And I want to keep this about the same size. Trying to place it like on the line. Hang on. There we go. See, so I've moved forward, but then I'm going to move back now to create an outline. So a back stitch is great for outlining whenever you want to create create an outline or a boundary, if you will. And if you want to create a curved line, very easily you can do that. So what's sounding right now is just it's the sound of my canvas. Remember, this is a pretty thick canvas. So again, I'm just going back. And you can incorporate this, or you can do this with paper very easily. Oop, lost my needle there. And then I want to place it here. So in a way, you're creating a line by going backwards and then moving forward. Okay, any questions?
How can we choose the canvas? Does it have different fabrics, or is it just fixed?
Oh, I mean, this is the fabric I had, but you can use pretty much any fabric. You can embroider on anything from, you know, t-shirt fabric or any kind of fabric you have laying around at home. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So you guys get the idea here.
How do you know how long to make the fabric?
Well, it depends. I mean, your books are not very large. So they are, what did we say, 7.5 by 11 inches. So they're about, each page is about this big. So you can actually add some textures or, you know, say raindrops or anything on one side. And remember, the other side of the, because since we're going to have our accordion books, they're going to be worked on one side. We won't see the back, but I can help you also cover the back. I can teach you how to cover the back so we don't see the stitches, all right?
No, thank you.
So this is the back stitch. Just gonna do one more for the sake of it. It's very awkward working the way I'm showing you guys. Okay. All right, so the next stitch, and again, these are very basic.
How do you, when you finish doing the stitch, how do you close it?
Let me show you. So I have, say that I finish here, okay? So what I do is I do a little knot by just grabbing a little bit of fabric. As if I was going to do one stitch, I have this loop here. I pass my needle onto the loop. And then I'm just creating a little knot here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Just a little loopy loop, I call it. And then you can do another one to secure your thread. That thread is not going anywhere. And then you just cut. And that's how you start and you end. Okay. All right, let me do another stitch here. You know what? All right, so let's continue here, and we're going to be working now on the stem stitch. So basically, this is a little bit thicker. This, you know, so we start on the beginning, which is the back stitch, right? We go back, and the stem stitch is basically, think about hatching. We're basically going to be hatching, but in a smaller way. So I'm actually adding my stitch here. And it's much smaller. So it's similar to the back stitch in that I'm going back, but instead of, I don't know if you guys can see here. I'm going back just a little bit to overlap the stitches. So can you see that? I'm going back a bit. This is kind of like a running forward stitch, and I'm just going back a tad. Try to get it a little bit closer. Sorry. So do you see how different it is from the back stitch? See, the back stitch is kind of like a continuous line. This is kind of like a jagged little line. It's not as smooth. Oh, I went up. Hang on, just going to go up here. See, I'm going back a tad, but I want to keep my back stitch on one side of my line, always on the same line. Hang on, somebody's wanting to either join us. There we go, Daphne's here. Okay. Sorry for that.
Hello.
All right, so I'm going back again, going forward, I mean, doing one stitch, and you can actually, before you end, you can do your little back stitch here. Okay, makes sense? Do you guys see the difference? If you don't, please tell me. All right, so this is the stem. A little bit thicker than the back stitch. All right? Okay, so to answer the question that Barbara posted a little bit ago, I have the end of my stitching here. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of the fabric and in a way that it's not noticeable from the front. Right, I'm passing my needle. Okay, I have my little loop or loopy loop. Pass my needle through, and then I created a little knot. And then I'm going to do another one just to secure my thread. Anybody here knows how to sew or?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, perfect. Do you know how to embroider, Daphne?
A little bit. I know how to do like certain things like leaves and stuff.
Okay, that's great. So now I have my little dot, and notice just how, you know, the back stitch, you're going to be using a lot of thread. Stem, you don't use as much. Okay. All right, so I have, you know, my thread is getting smaller. I'm going to do a little back knot here at the start, and we're going to do another stitch, which is called the chain stitch. So the chain is kind of fun. So I'm working actually from just one regular line to getting a little bit more texture to getting even more texture, okay? And after the chain stitch, we're gonna start with satin stitch, and I'm just gonna show you guys just real quick. All right, so I have my knot and I'm starting a new one, okay? So the chain stitch is rather interesting in the beginning. So you want to have your thread in one area, okay, on your, design. And I'm going to go back and create a little loop, if you will, but I'm not going to go through, hang on, because I'm doing this wrong. I'm going to leave a little loop in here. Do you see that? Yes? And now I'm going to move forward. And I'm going to pass my needle within this loop we just created. Do you see that? So again, I'm going to go backwards, creating a loop. Then I'm moving forward from the back. Do you see that? And do you see how thicker is getting?
I have a question.
Yes.
Whenever you bring the needle back in to make the loop, are you putting it back into the same hole or are you just putting it next to it?
I put it next to it.
Okay.
I like placing it next to it, but also part of it is because, this is rather thick fabric. I mean, you guys have no idea how much strength it takes.
Mm.
Can you see the chain in there? So I'm going back. Daphne, I'm actually recording this class, just FYI. And I'll give you guys the link.
This is for me. I would show this to my mom. That's cool.
All right, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to do a couple more. And I usually have needles in the classroom for you guys, so you guys don't have to buy extra stuff. And of course, we have scissors in the classroom, etc. All right, so how do you finish that? This chain here. Well, very simple. So this is my last one. Okay, do you guys see that? So I'm just going to go in and secure my last chain.
What kind of fabric are you using?
I'm using canvas,
Oh, okay.
canvas for painting, which
Gotcha.
is rather thick.
Yeah.
So pardon my, and then I have my chain stitch, and then now I'm going to do a little knot in here in order to secure my thread. Okay, so that we don't lose the embroidery on the front. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, on to, I'm going to have to rethread my needle. And again, I'm using a rather thick, big needle. This is an upholstery needle to show you guys, so you have a better view. But I typically use a thinner needle. Let me pause. All right, so onto our satin stitch. So now we have three kinds of boundaries, right? But what do we do if we want to create a shape? So I'm actually going to draw here a leaf or a circle too, either or, both would work. So I have new thread that I just rethreaded my needle, and the satin stitch is basically hatching. Okay, I have to be kind of comfortable here because and I might have used way too much thread. So bear with me for a second. Basically what I'm doing here is just creating parallels. Parallel stitches so that I can fill in a particular area. Just bear with me for a moment.
So is it like the first one that is a back end stitch, but you're just making the lines next to each other, right?
Yep, exactly. I'm just placing my lines next to one another.
Your cat is cute, Daphne.
Thank you. I got both my cats finally. They were at my parents' house, and I've been staying. Yeah, I've been staying in Richardson at my boyfriend's house, and so I finally went and got my cats the other day.
Good, good for you. Okay, one trick when you're working, especially when you're working on paper, is do not pull the thread too hard, okay? Okay, guys, I really made this long. Oh boy. Okay. So I'm just going back and forth, but using parallel lines to fill in an area. Oops. Hang on. Bit of a mess out here in the back. Hang on, I have to do a little plastic surgery over here. I like to call it plastic surgery. Just a little cut in there. So now, again, we're creating actual texture. We're working with actual texture instead of implied texture, which we did in our last assignment, okay? So slowly but surely, I'm filling up this kind of leaf shape I drew first with pencil. You see that? I'm starting to fill in this shape over here. Okay, so this is going to take me a little while. Hang on, sometimes this happens. Okay. And then going back and forth. When you have a thread as long as I have it, it's going to tend to bundle up in the back and create like this crazy knot. So you have to be careful. Now, what I love about this stitch is that it covers large areas of surface. Do you see that? Have to be very patient though. Now, let me show you guys another trick here that I have up my sleeve, which is, and I'm going to have to change something here. You can actually do this stitch double. You can double it, meaning you're going to achieve thicker area even faster. Hang on. Remember, when you're working with 2 threads, it's going to get really thick really quickly. This fabric, this canvas is so unforgiving. Okay, finally, it's at the perfect length. All right, I'll do one more, and then we'll move on to another stitch. Okay. Boundaries, 1, 2, 3, and then now with the satin stitch, you can actually fill in shapes. All right, so that's 4 stitches. The last one, it's the French knot. Let's start over here. I like the French knot. It's you can actually fill in areas just by utilizing pure French knot. Let me just do one. Hang on, because I have to start up again. Okay. So with the French knot, you're going to basically, hang on one second. What am I doing wrong? Hang on, I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, let me double check here. Okay, now you're going to do a big loop here, okay? Then you're going to pull your needle up, and then you're going to go around the needle.
I cannot see. Could you please get it higher?
Oh, you can hear?
I cannot see. It's so down.
Okay.
Yes, it's better. Thank you.
Hang on, I can start again. Okay, I'll start again. Hang on, I'm doing something wrong here. Let me start again over here. Also, I'm going to do it simple because it's a little bit easier, single thread. All right, let me do my knot in the back. So I'm going to do one small stitch. Okay, I'm coming from the back, one stitch. I have my needle right here, stabbing the fabric, and then I'm going to go around the needle with my thread several times. Maybe you can do 2, 3 times, 4, depending on how big you want the knot. Okay. Ooh, it's almost impossible to do with this thread. It's so thick. So I have a really thick thread here with several loops, and then I'm going to come back again to secure it. And of course, okay. So I'm basically making, French dots are basically thicker dots. French knots, I mean. So again, I'm going to go in, go up, and then I'm going to do one stabbing, like one little stitch here. It's not going to be very thick.
Is this something people use to make a line with, or is this something?
You can use it to fill in areas, all knots, or you can actually create, you know, accent points.
Mhm.
So I have my needle here across the fabric, and then I'm going to go in with my thread and I'm going to go around that needle several times. Hang on 1 second. So I'm going to go in 1, 2, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Secure it here. And then I'm going to go down on another area here. See, I made it a little bit bigger, this second one, than this one. First one was tiny, then this one, then this one. I'm going to make another one for you guys. Okay, take out my thread. Just do one little stab here, okay? With the back thread, the thread that it's actually secure on the fabric, I'm going to go around my needle several times. 3, 4, okay? And I'm going to take out all of my thread. Do you guys see that? And then now I'm going to secure it in a different spot. Just next to the knot. Okay. It's turned out kind of cute. You guys see that? And then they have, you can tell that they have a little bit of height. Do you see that? In relation to the other.
How do you secure the French knot in the back?
How do you secure it?
Yeah, in the back.
So in the back, you can continue depending on how many you have. Say I'm going to do one right next to it. You don't need to secure it yet. But when you're done, same thing. You do one little loop in the back and you do your knot to secure your thread so that you know that your thread is not going anywhere. So let me do another French knot here right next to it to show you guys what it can do, okay? So I'm here and I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 loopy loops, like to call them loopy loops. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then one more, 4. Okay. I'm just going to do these right next to one another to show you guys the effect. It's not wanting to cooperate with me. Okay. Note to self, whenever I'm going to do this in Zoom again, not to use Canvas. Canvas is really hard, guys. It's very hard working on this material. Just wanted to show you guys a lot of contrast, but boy. Okay. I'm just gonna do another one right next to it, just to show you guys what it can do, okay? 2, 3, and 4. And you can go in. So by creating a bunch of knots next to one another, you can create height and then a lot greater texture than in the other stitches, okay? So those are 5 stitches that, you know, are pretty common. Any questions?
Well,
No?
can you show us your examples of embroidery that you've done before?
What I have, see, this is one I did. This is just one example of knots I did last year, but much better fabric. Note to self. Also, you want to use some small scissors. You don't want to use the big scissors I was using because these are a little much better to maneuver. Let me show you guys some examples. These are some like kitchen towels that I made with satin stitch.
I like it.
That's dope.
And then, okay, and then,
I approve.
all right. And then finally, I'll show you guys this one.
They're very expressive.
They are. So why not? Also, the feeling of stabbing 1,000 times the fabric, it's actually really satisfying.
Therapeutic.
So,
So-
it reminds me when you grab a, you know, a pen and nib, and it's sort of like super classic. You just write anything that is not, that is like profanity. Everything is.
Exactly. That's the idea, a little bit. All right, guys. Well, listen, send me emails if you have any questions. I am pretty busy today and tomorrow, but nevertheless, we're meeting here on Wednesday during our class time, and I'd like for everybody to start at least have your pages created, you know, the folded pages. You guys have instructions on eCampus, and let's start working on transferring, at least having your thumbnails, the ones that you're going to be working on for the story. Because we have 3 more classes. That's it. And then the final. All right? Of this week, next week, and then final.
Our final is on May 13th, right?
I believe so, yes, on Wednesday, May 13th.
What will the final include?
So the final will include just the final project. You're going to be presenting on your final project. And then we get to discuss also the others, give feedback to everyone as if it was a, you know, a critique. Okay. All righty, guys. Well, listen, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Miss Leffold, I had a question.
Yes.
Um,